It's Hawaii Public Radio, all things considered. I'm Dave Lawrence. Today we are welcoming a legendary artist, and he has been inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame for multiple recordings. He's received a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, entertaining successfully since the 1950s. There are a handful of people, if that can say something like that. He was introduced to the world on the Ed Sullivan Show in '57. He sold millions of records, released a number of Christmas albums, and no wonder he's back for an annual set of Christmas shows. It's Friday and Saturday, December 20th and 21st, Blaisdell Concert Hall. A gigantic honor to welcome this international superstar, Johnny Mathis, talking to us. Hey, my brother, welcome. Thanks for doing this.
Well, bless your heart. I didn't know I did all that stuff. But thank you very much.
You are welcome very much, and great to have you on here. And you know what? You've got some interesting history in the islands. I'm not going to go through all of it, but we're blessed. We have this listener, Steve, the mystery emailer, and whenever anybody's going to be on the show, he sends me cool tidbits about their experiences in Hawaii in the past. So I just thought I'd run a couple of these by you just to see if you have any recollection. And these are so long ago, I completely get it if you don't remember either of them. But first one was in November 24th, 1958. Steve writes, 60 years ago, Johnny Mathis had a stopover at the Honolulu International Airport on his way back to the mainland after completing a successful concert tour of Australia. During the stopover, he got a free hula lesson from May Bemis, one of the hula dancers that greeted the arriving passengers. Do you remember that?
I do, very much so.
Wow. Any recollection you can share?
Hawaii is one of those rare places that a guy like me, first of all, I'll let you know that I come from a large family. My mom and my dad were my best pals, but they had 7 children. And so we were kind of like the most grateful people for things that were outside of our lives. Big things like going to Hawaii was a big deal.
Right.
I remember one of the reasons was my voice teacher. I started taking voice lessons at a very early age, and she was a wonderful woman who taught me free of charge. I had no money, but I did house chores for her, cleaned her house, scrubbed her floors, did anything, and she gave me voice lessons. And she was a big fan of Hawaii. I'm talking about a long time ago.
Connie Cox.
And, she used to come to the studio where I took my lessons, and she always had pictures of herself and her boyfriend in Hawaii, and she had all sorts of little, trinkets that she brought along. And I always fantasized about singing in Hawaii, and of course, to this point in my life, I feel the same way she does about Hawaii. It's such a wonderful place. My sister lived there for a few years when her husband was in the service, and he was stationed there. So I have nothing but great memories and wonderful feelings about the state of Hawaii.
Well, that's a great story, though. What you just added really paints a picture. Was that woman you were talking about, Connie Cox?
That was Connie Cox, yes.
Incredible. And what a story going back to that, because you kind of talked about it a little bit. There were a lot of children. You're the 4th of 7 kids, and one of the amazing stories about you and your connection to music centers around your father, Clem, and he bringing an upright piano into the house, but it's quite a story if you can share that.
Well, Dad was he was my best pal. He also sang, but nobody heard him except the family. And we went fishing together. He hunted. I didn't approve of hunting, but he hunted and brought a lot of food to the house in that respect. But the thing that I remember most is him in the evening after he'd come back from work, and it was always at night, and he always had his clothes on. He painted people's home for that's the way he made his living. He was very good at it, and he eventually ended up painting the insides of their home, which was a little more decorative. And he came home all the time, and his clothes were, with paint on them all out. And the first thing he did after he grabbed a glass of beer was to sit down at the piano and play and sing. And that is the thing that is so vivid in my mind, even to this late date. That is the reason that I sang, and I sang because I love my dad so much.
That's incredible, and what and I understood that it didn't fit right in the house. He had to take the piano apart and then put it in the house and then reassemble it.
Tiny little apartment house, and he came home one day with a pile of it looks like wood or junk or something, and decided that it was a piano. And I said, "Oh, that's not a piano," and he brought it all in, put it on the floor, and we sat there for hours and hours putting it together, and it turned out to be a piano.
What a trip, man. I mean, your story, and again, another one of these, as your career takes off there, you end up, there's another one of these significant people, kind of like the way that Connie played that role. When you read your bio at your website, tell that story of the Black Hawk nightclub and how Helen, one of the owners, helped get you what turns out to be your big break.
Well, I was always a jazz fan. My dad had to accompany me whenever I went to a local jazz club in San Francisco, which was quite often. And Dad would take me in. We would sit in the back or sit someplace where we were not noticeable. And it was a kind of ambience that was available to a young person like myself. I'm talking about I was 7, 8, 9 years old.
Wow.
You could do certain things, and they would make allowances for it, as they did with my dad, who brought me in, and we would sit or stand in the back of these jazz clubs, and I would listen to people like Lena Horne and Oscar Peterson, all of these extraordinarily gifted people, Billy Eckstine, Nat Cole. They were the ones who came to this nightclub, and my dad and I would sit in the back and listen to them, and occasionally I would even get a chance to meet one and shake their hand, and of course, they were very nice people. I remember them all as being very gentlemanly and very gracious to a young kid like myself. And over the years, I have met every single one of them who was nice to me, and they said, "Oh, I remember you. You're that little kid your dad brought you to the nightclub, and you couldn't drink and you couldn't do this, but you sat in the back and listened." And so many of them have been so kind to me over the years. And Nat King Cole, of course, was my greatest hero, and he turned out to be one of my best pals in the world, if you can imagine. From being a little kid and worshiping a man like that, and then having to meet him and be part of his friendship, meeting his family, and growing up to even sing and record with his daughter, Natalie. So Nat King Cole was my vocal and wonderful, wonderful friend and hero.
What's a great memory of spending time with him when you're sitting there reminiscing like this, something that puts a smile on your face? Or perhaps, Johnny, something that a lot of people don't know about him that is a nice way to pay tribute to him?
He was very gentle, very kind. He loved baseball. I remember doing one of these celebrity baseball games where a lot of celebrities play against one another, I guess. Anyway, Nat was a wonderful baseball player when he was very young, and but I cannot express myself to the audience enough to tell them what a joy it was for me being a little kid. I must have been 12 or 13 years old when I met Nat. He was so kind, so generous, and I remember him so vividly that way, so that when I did start to sing, and had some success with my music. He was one of the first people to say, "Now you see, I told you." It was like a fairy tale. It really was, and all his life after that, I was friends with him. I got to know his family, and eventually Natalie and I worked together on many occasions. We recorded together. We became pals, and I drove her crazy talking about her dad all the time.
And so you were friends with him throughout his entire life then?
Absolutely.
There's a great story, your historic appearance on the Ed Sullivan Show, 1957. Now, looking back, you've done so much TV, have worked in so many different ways in TV, too, different kinds of productions, different technologies as the TV went into a more modern era. When you look back to that 57 appearance on Ed Sullivan, was that the critical, I mean, how would you rank that one appearance in terms of its role in your career?
At the time, the Ed Sullivan Show was de rigueur, the most popular program on Sunday night. And to get on it was a big bonus for me. That appearance that I made for the first time, singing probably my first recording, which was, it's not for me to say, I think. And it was a big boost to my career. And over the years, I appeared on his program many times, and it was very big part of my success as a youngster, and eventually propelled me into the spotlight so that people knew who I was when they heard me sing. Very important to my career. So many situations like that were so meaningful. As a young person, I was 18, 19 years old when I started recording, and it was a big deal for me. I still remember it with such a. It was such a necessary thing to my career, and it happened, and it was just like a miracle.
Was he fun? Did you spend any personal time with him? Because you always see like the videos of him on TV, but I always wondered what he was like just talking. I
did live in New York for the first 10 or 12 years of my career, and I met him personally and locally in the there's a place that he frequented, which was kind of a delicatessen, and I saw him on occasion there. He was not very lucid as far as, being a host of a very famous television show like that. He was awkward when he spoke. He's a newsman. And he was a very, very famous columnist for one of the New York newspapers, and he had really no experience, as a talker on television, and many people kind of made fun of him because he was a little bit awkward, but he was quite a nice man.
What a great description, dude! I've never heard that much about him. You just filled in a whole lot. I've always because you just did so much TV. When you past that. When you think of the other ones that maybe were more fun, that you look back, gives you a big smile, maybe when you watch some of them, what are some of your other favorite TV experiences?
Well, the one that really was the most fun was, what was his name? Mike? No, was it Mike?
Mike Douglas?
Michael.
Mike Douglas? Is that who you were?
Mike Douglas, that's it. Yeah, he was such fun. Because he was like a little kid, and he was really good at what he did. And I must have done his show 1,000 times. And we had so much fun because I would sit there for the entire show, and whoever was on, I would integrate with them. And he had, I think it was part of his program where he had a person who was on the show with him, and you would stay the whole time and meet the people and greet the people, the other entertainers who would come and perform. And it was a wonderful way of introducing me and in my lifetime to a larger audience. I can't tell you how grateful I am as far as my music is concerned to have had all of these people along the way who have been so kind to me. From people like my dad was my biggest hero. He's the person that I love the most in the world. And he was a singer. He was the person who said, "Okay, son, let's go down and see this person." He would take me in San Francisco, wherever he thought I might get some input as far as singing was concerned. And he was the total catalyst of my life as far as music was concerned. And he was also my hero as a human being.
That's really touching stuff. To hear that. I could say a similar thing about my mom, I guess, but when I hear you talk like that, that's powerful. Also, it makes me, when you talk about him being a hero and that role, and him being a great friend too, not that long ago, you recently did some recording with an artist that I imagine you go way, way back with too. Dionne Warwick. You just did recently did some new duets, one with Frida Payne, but also with Dionne. When did you first run into Dionne?
Oh gosh, 1,000 years ago. but she's still very young, of course, as all women are. They never get old. Dionne and I go back. We worked together when we were just beginning our careers. I spent some time with her about 2 days ago. We live very close together in Southern California, and we see each other a lot. She had a program on television for a few years, and I appeared on it and sang with her. She's one of my favorite people. She's quite wonderful in so many ways. She even lives in a house that I lived in for 10 or 15 years in Southern California. She bought the house. I don't know whether she bought it because I lived in it, but anyway, she did. And has been a wonderful friend of mine through my lifetime as a singer. I love her music. I love singing with her. In fact, for about 4 or 5 years, we toured together and sang on the same stage. We did lots of duets, and that was a ball. I loved it. She's a great person, and of course has had a great career, and I'm a big fan of hers.
Before we wrap it up with you, you mentioned doing duets, touring and stuff, crossing paths, if you will, with some other heavyweights. I just want to drop a couple big names and see where in your life they may have fit in or that you've run into them. James Brown.
Oh, James, and I was a big fan of his, mostly because my little brother Michael loved his dancing. He danced a little bit like James Brown, and he eventually, my brother, sang a little bit. Didn't make a career out of it, but he loved to dance, and James Brown was his hero. And I remember him always dancing when James came on television. But
you never got to interact with him.
I met him, and as I have with so many entertainers who I'm very fond of, some of us ended up being pals for many, many years, and some of us met casually.
I get it.
Because we admired one another, and on many occasions I've heard people that I really, really love as an entertainer say nice things about me, and it's just been a wonderful, wonderful way of not only enhancing my career, but as a person, meeting some of these extraordinarily gifted people over the years and being pals with them.
Who would you call your greatest acquaintances that have become friends?
Nat King Cole, without a doubt. He was the nicest person I ever met in my life, and he was the best singer I ever heard in my life, and the nicest man, period. That was it. He was the top of the world, and I will never forget, he had a television show for a very short time, maybe 3 or 4 years, where he sang for, it was only 15 minutes, I think. But one night, I was sitting with my dad, who loved Nat King Cole. In fact, he told me that's the reason that he sang. And we were sitting in a chair, we had been eating, and that program came on, and he says, "Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to sing a song by a young man, Johnny Mathis." Well, my dad almost had a heart attack, and he sang one of my songs, and that was my introduction to Nat, and we became pals over the years. He was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful man, and a great, great artist whom I learned so much from. I've recorded so many of the songs that he made famous, and to have a person like that in my life, it's like a beacon. It shows you where you're capable of going if you mind your ways, and there's so many things that may get into to the way, but he showed me that he was a gentleman, and he was an artist, and he was a kind man. So I had a lot to learn from him.
No better story than that, sitting there with your dad, having that come on the TV. Very, very impressive, and a good note to leave it on. It is the Voice of Romance tour, and he's coming back. It's going to be Friday and Saturday, December 20th and 21st, Blaisdell Concert Hall. A gentleman who made his debut, I believe it was, 58 years ago, October 9th and 10th, 1960, at the Waikiki Shell, and now...
Yes! And I had a group of kids with me called the Young Americans.
You remember it well.
Yeah, I loved it. You kidding? I never played in a place like that. It was so wonderful.
It's a great, great thing, and he's bringing it back. And I hope you had fun today reminiscing. I really, really, really enjoyed talking to you, Johnny. This was a whole lot of fun. I hope you had fun, too.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Hello, everyone. This is Johnny Mathis. I had a great time speaking with my good friend, Dave Lawrence. We need your help right now. Please make a donation to HBR. Here's how, and thank you so much.
You're the man, Johnny. Thank you for your patience. I apologize.
And I'm sorry, I have a little problem hearing. I think too many microphones and too many loudspeakers over the years, but oh, bless your heart. Thank you so much for the interview, and I'm sure it'll help my performance over there, okay?
I appreciate it, Johnny. I really do. I'm giving you a big hug and a high five. It was great having you on. Maybe we'll get to say hi while you're in town.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Aloha.